Welcome back as we continue our discussion with Jaime Sweany of Juniper Art Gallery. So, how did you feel when you actually went into the fine arts program at IU in Bloomington? How did you feel when you made, I can imagine you going through school and doing art, art in school and all that, but going into the university setting with all that background and everything that you wanted to, at that point in your life, do with art, how was that for you?
Well, it was a little odd. I took a couple years off after high school. I actually, the second I could, I moved down to Brown County with all my artist musician friends that lived out in the hills.
Good for you.
You rebel, you. Yeah.
You just wanted to be free.
I couldn't, I was a nonconformist for sure. And, I just wanted to live the hippie girl life and, with my musician friends and stuff. But, after you work enough jobs in a deli or bakery or whatever, and you're just like, man, I need to do something else.
Yeah. So when all those hours in the day are taken up by just trying to put food on the table and pay the rent, you don't have time to be creative and stuff. You begin to kind of scratch your head and say, wait a minute,
maybe I should go to art school. Maybe I should do that. So I went to IU in Bloomington, and I paid my own way. It was a pretty tough thing because my parents were artists. They didn't have a lot of money and they had 4 kids. So I made all the arrangements to go myself and pay my own way. And, when I first started taking classes, it was a little intimidating because I had more than one teacher say, "Oh, you're Paul Sweeney's daughter. Well, we'll be expecting a lot from you."
Oh man,
said that to me.
So not fair.
Yeah, and, I'd already been raised in an environment that I didn't understand the degree of talent my parents possessed.
Sure. Well, you grew up with it. They were just your parents.
Yeah. To me, they, oh, my parents are artists. Your parents a doctor. Your parents whatever. Well, mine are parents.
But then the renown wasn't. You weren't aware of the renown.
Yeah, and also I wasn't at that point aware, even though I thought my dad was a great artist, the exceptional level of artist he was. So I already had been my entire life hard on myself. Like, why can't I be as good as he is? Why, what's wrong with me? Well, to this date, I haven't met many people that are as good as he is, but he was. But, it was just like, so I guess there were some things kind of going against me by the time I went to I don't know, just that whole academic.
It's a whole different set of hoops to jump through. Academia.
And I did excel. I did very, very well, and I loved it. I as far as the journey goes, I had 2.5 years into it. I had gotten married, and I ended up, I guess it was almost 3 years into it, I broke up with my husband. It was like kind of a bad thing, and ended up dropping out of school. So, which was really sad because I had like a 4.0 grade average. But it was a hard time in my life, and I decided, school, maybe I should just take a break. So from there, I actually moved back to Indianapolis for a few years, and I had a great job at the Hummingbird Cafe that used to be at 72nd Street Keystone, which I remember when it was down on Talbot. So I worked there and really reconnected again with a lot of musicians. Because for me, music and art have always been just integral for me. And it just has been hard for me to separate them and their importance and influence on my life, even though I was kind of a hippie girl playing a guitar, but I wasn't any good. It wasn't like I was excelling at music, but I appreciated it.
But it fed part of your artistic.
Oh, it totally fed me. And
I believe the connection between visual art and music is very strong. I can't play a single instrument. I can't sing. I can't, nothing. But I love music, and I would probably bet you that half of my paintings are inspired by certain songs or certain song lyrics or, musicians I know or something like that. I get very inspired by music, and I see music in visuals. And so I feel like I understand that connection that you had. And I think it's great you could actually play guitar, because I can't tell you how many times I tried to learn to play guitar and I'm all thumbs. It just never was going to happen. That's just not me. So,
Well, it's funny you mention seeing music and visuals, because I do the same thing. And I don't know how many people actually do that, because I remember back in the day when VH1, MTV first came out, I absolutely hated music videos because
it ruined the images in your head.
Not what's going on in my head about that song.
So very few were accurate.
Oh yeah.
Well, they did that wrong.
Yeah. So
I have some very dear friends that are musicians, and one of them, I said something like that, to seeing the music in visuals, in colors, and in words that aren't the lyrics, just seeing music in a very different way. And she was very shocked by that. She's like, I never thought of that. And she, we did this little exercise where we tried to, she wrote music. She played piano, wrote music, beautiful song. And she would play something and, that she wrote with her eyes closed, and try to see if she could visualize something other than the notes on the page that she, the literal notes that she wrote on the page. And she was just like, I can't do it, Alice. And I'm like, well, I can. I got it all. I can paint you a painting of that song you just played. I said, that song you just played, I will paint you a painting of it. It was so, so, I mean, I don't know if other people do that like you.
I wonder, it's kind of interesting if other artists feel that way.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but I'm glad that you do, because I think that's interesting part of what it makes you who you are as an artist.
So I was up in Indy for a few years, and then I came back down to Bloomington because I just couldn't resist the hills. And I went back to school and finished my degree, and I was going off into the Returning Women's Center because I felt so old by then.
Yeah.
I was like 30,
I know,
I felt like an old lady. But the Returning Women's Center was really helpful for me, and I had a little one in tow, so it was nice. But I just couldn't resist the creative community of what Bloomington is, and even back then, because it's like we're talking the 80s. It was still a mecca for music
fabulous.
And art.
Definitely.
It was just the best place to be in the state.
It really was. It really was. And it's still, I mean, now it's even more, I think so, because of the Cultural Arts District and just they've, since Bloomington has always nurtured and embraced the arts, that has just grown and grown, I feel like,
I think it values the arts quite a bit, but it's almost impossible to make a living in Bloomington as an artist. So I do
almost
feel
impossible to make a living anywhere as an artist. But.
Yeah, and I think that there's some work to be done there, because we can get on to that in a minute.
Sure.
But
everybody loves artwork, but they don't necessarily want to pay for it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I think when you have a town that's full of musicians and artists, and they maybe aren't making very much money, it's hard for them to be supporting each other by buying artwork.
Oh yeah, I can't buy artwork that I have. I mean, that's created by artists that I admire. I can't do it. I don't. I can't.
Yeah. So it's very it's kind of the eternal conundrum for that. If you're in a really artistic community, unless it's a real touristy community, or somehow they're really promoting the sale of artwork and providing grants, and instead of hiring people from out of state to come do big public art projects, hire the locals. And so I think that I think Indiana, for being a pretty conservative and interesting state, I won't go beyond that.
Yeah, let's just say interesting.
I think they're trying really hard, like the Indiana Arts Commission, IAC. I really respect Maya Michelson.
I do too.
Louis Ricci, and so many people. They're trying really hard to kind of make it a better home. Oh yeah,
I think if it wasn't for the Indiana Arts Commission, I would write Indiana off. I would just be like, no, this is not the place to be if you are artistic. But because of the Indiana Arts Commission and some smaller organizations that also support the arts regionally and in local settings and stuff, I think there's hope. There's hope on the horizon. And I've seen, if anybody had ever, I live in Noblesville, Indiana, which is just, north of Indianapolis. And,
Mhm.
growing up here, going to high school in the, late 70s, early 80s, I went to college in 81. If someone had told me then that Noblesville was going to be a cultural arts district in my
Mhm.
lifetime, and I was going to be an artist in it, that'd be like crazy. But just that Noblesville was going to be that, I would have been like, there's no way. Because when I was in high school, you literally had like two semesters of art, where it's all you could take. And in each
Mhm.
semester, it was like a week of sketch, a week of drawing, a week of pottery, a week of the wheel, a week of
Yeah.
sculpture, a week,
Yeah.
that's it. That's all you had. And,
Yeah.
so even in the schools, it wasn't like a big thing. And it's certainly in
Mhm.
the community, there were a couple of artists that were kind of known as these eccentric, weird artist people, but they weren't, I mean, that wasn't they had other jobs, or they had a spouse that was rich. It wasn't like,
That's
you know,
really the way how so
exactly.
many people make it. And I think I was pretty naive when I first got into arts businesses, thinking, oh, well, that person makes it as in a
That's
small
right.
business. I
Mhm.
could do it, but oh, I didn't
Didn't
notice
have
that
the
her
financial.
husband is like a brain surgeon or
Let us
you know,
let us
it's
say that that's a wonderful transition into talking about your professional art career as a gallery owner. Again,
Mhm.
Juniper Art Gallery on the south side of historic Courthouse Square in Spencer, Indiana. So I know that you had an art gallery before this one. You had
Mhm.
the Wandering Turtle Gallery in 2002 to 2011, which is a nice long
Right.
stretch,
Mhm.
in Bloomington, and you received a wonderful Small Business of the Year award from downtown Bloomington in 2009 for that
Yes.
gallery.
Yes.
Congratulations on having one successful gallery, and now, the Juniper Art Gallery. So tell us a little bit about, like you were saying, that transition from just purely doing your own artwork to then getting into the world of gallery owner. How did that
Mhm.
happen?
Well, it wouldn't have happened had I not been a co-owner of a Wild Birds Unlimited
Hmm?
franchise.
Oh, really? Interesting connection.
Yes, back when it was, like a affordable thing to actually be to get into that
Yeah.
franchise.
Hmm.
Me and my partner at the time, we opened one in Bloomington, and it wasn't my idea to do it. It was his. I was running my black and white portrait
Hmm.
photography business, which luminescence.
Hmm.
I had a dark room. I'd
Hmm.
studied photography and mostly photography and ceramics in my when I went back to school. And I just love portraits. So I was
Hmm.
doing a portrait photography business, and he wanted to do this Wild Birds Unlimited franchise and asked me if I'd please kind of put my stuff on the back burner for a year just to help him get it off the ground.
Hmm.
And 5 years later, I still
You
couldn't
still were
leave
you
because
still
it
were
was
wild birds,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because it's just so much work to grow
Oh,
a
I'm
business, which
sure.
we did.
Yeah,
We took this business and basically quadrupled its income
that's
over the
great.
years. It was a going business
Yeah.
when we bought it,
Hmm.
and it was really, really successful. And so that was my first excursion into business, and I think without that I probably wouldn't have ever had the nerve just to jump into running an art gallery. but
Sure, that probably
but
gave you some confidence. Stay tuned for the rest of our interview with Jaime Sweany of Juniper Art Gallery.